Chosen one, pause for a moment and listen with an open heart. This message did not appear before you by chance. God has placed it in your path for a reason. Don't scroll away just yet. Heaven is reaching toward you because there is something you need to understand before it's too late. This is more than a message. It is an invitation to pay attention. Those with ears to hear will recognize what the Spirit is saying. Every breath you take has purpose, and every beat of your heart has been known by God since before time began. Nothing about this moment is accidental. When heaven begins to move, it does so with intention. You were led here according to God's perfect plan, and the veil hiding the truth is beginning to lift from your eyes. There's a reason you're hearing these words tonight instead of yesterday. There's a reason your heart won't let you click away. Heaven is declaring, I will not allow my child to fall into deception. Something hidden is about to be revealed. A truth buried for far too long is about to rise to the surface. God's Spirit is moving not to fill you with fear, but to bring you freedom. Every delay you endured, every season of silence, and every restless night has been preparing you for this very moment. Chosen one, you have sensed that something has been changing. The line between light and darkness has become clearer. You've felt the tension, the quiet battle between faith and fear, hope and uncertainty. This is the hour when heaven speaks on your behalf. And when God speaks, everything else must be still. Every silent tear you've cried has been seen. Every moment you questioned your value has been recorded in heaven. Every time you believed no one noticed your pain, God was watching with compassion. You have never been forgotten. You have never been abandoned. You have always been surrounded by a love powerful enough to expose every shadow standing against your purpose. So don't turn away now. Don't close your heart. This message may be the answer to prayers you never found the words to speak. Even now, God's hand stands between you and danger, drawing a boundary that darkness cannot cross. This is your awakening. This is your invitation. This is the moment heaven has been preparing for since the day you were born. If your spirit recognizes these words, and your heart is stirred with faith, write 777 as a sign of agreement. I pray that God's protection surrounds you tonight, because this is not the conclusion of your story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. Nothing in God's kingdom happens by accident. Every meeting, every breath, every step is part of His perfect design. When heaven calls your name, it is never random. It is a divine appointment. God's timing is always precise. And right now you're standing inside one of those sacred moments. This message reached you because heaven arranged it long before you realized you would need it. While life distracted you with endless noise, God continued speaking to your spirit in the quiet places of your heart. Before the mountains stood tall, before the oceans filled the earth, your name was already known by the Creator. As Scripture says in Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. You are not wandering through life without direction. You are walking through a path God has already prepared. His unseen hand has been leading you toward this very moment, which is why these words seem to reach deeper than ordinary sound. They awaken something eternal within you. There were seasons when you believed your prayers had disappeared into silence. Times when your faith became weak under the weight of waiting. But heaven's silence has never meant God's absence. It has always meant preparation. What looked like delay was often protection. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. God has been weaving His plan around your life with perfect care. You were never forgotten. You were being protected from things that could have destroyed the purpose He placed inside you before it had the chance to grow. There are no accidents in God's kingdom. You did not simply discover this message. In many ways, this message found you. You were called here because heaven wanted your attention. Even if you feel unworthy, uncertain, or unprepared, remember that God never makes mistakes. Every tear became a prayer heaven heard. Every sigh became a signal before God's throne. You have never been outside His reach. You have always remained within His plan. When heaven calls your name, it is not to flatter you. It is to awaken you. God's calling always comes before cleansing, and cleansing always prepares the way for purpose. As C.S. Lewis wisely wrote in The Four Loves, to love at all is to be vulnerable. That truth reflects what you're experiencing today. God has not called you because you are perfect. He has called you because you are deeply loved. At this very moment, heaven's attention is fixed upon you. So listen carefully. Do not dismiss what you are feeling as simple emotion. It is alignment. It is God's voice drawing your heart closer to the purpose He created you for. You are not being called as punishment. You are being called as proof of His love. Because when heaven calls your name, everything begins to change. And tonight, that call has reached you. God never gives a warning without purpose. Whenever he speaks with urgency, it is because something is moving too close to the destiny he has planned for your life. There is someone whose presence around you has not been as genuine as it appeared. Outwardly, he may seem kind and trustworthy, but beneath the surface something is different. His words bring comfort while his intentions remain hidden, deep inside. You have already noticed small signs, a hesitation, an uneasy feeling, a quiet conflict between what he says and what your spirit senses. Those moments were not your imagination. They were gentle warnings from heaven. Every time you felt an unexplained heaviness in his presence, God was trying to get your attention. Every time you ignored your discernment, the Holy Spirit continued whispering to your heart. What you called suspicion was often spiritual discernment. That inner unrest was not weakness. It was God's loving warning, because he often speaks through the quiet loss of peace long before he speaks through dramatic signs. Chosen one, never forget this truth. Not every person who enters your life has been sent by God. Some arrive carrying hidden motives, assigned to distract your focus, weaken your faith, or delay the purpose God has prepared for you. What once felt like comfort may have actually been a test. What appeared to be destiny may have been nothing more than a carefully crafted disguise. As Scripture reminds us, Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. The shadow walking beside you wears a pleasant smile, but beneath that appearance lies a different intention. You saw kindness, yet heaven saw calculation. You heard promises. While God recognized manipulation, you believed in loyalty. But heaven perceived an agenda hidden beneath carefully chosen words. Now the season of concealment has come to an end. God never exposes the truth to embarrass his children. He reveals it because he loves them enough to protect them. You have reached the moment where light begins separating itself from darkness, where every disguise starts losing its power beneath the weight of truth. Do not reject what God is revealing. This revelation has not come to wound you. It has come to rescue you. This man carefully observed your heart. He noticed how quickly you forgave, how generously you trusted, and how deeply you believed the best in others. Yet he failed to understand one important truth. Heaven always watches over those who walk with sincere hearts. Your kindness has never been weakness. It has always been evidence that God's light still lives within you. Do not allow betrayal to turn your heart cold. Instead, allow it to deepen your wisdom. Let discernment become your shield and truth become the weapon that guards your future. As C.S. Lewis wisely observed in the Screwtape Letters, the safest road to hell is the gradual one. Rarely does darkness arrive through dramatic moments. More often it moves quietly, asking for small compromises until truth slowly fades from sight. That is why heaven interrupted your journey tonight. God is gently pulling back the veil that once covered your eyes. The face you trusted is no longer what it appeared to be. The silence you dismissed carried meaning all along. But do not be afraid, because light will always overcome deception. Once truth is revealed, lies lose the power they once held over you. This warning is not meant to frighten you. It is God's protection reaching you before deception reaches any deeper. Do not ignore what your spirit is sensing now. Heaven is drawing a boundary that darkness cannot cross. The mask is beginning to fall, and the truth is finally standing in the open. Never mistake God's silence for his absence. Never confuse stillness with indifference. Heaven has witnessed every moment your faith was tested. Every second you wondered whether God still saw your pain, he was watching with perfect love. What felt like silence was actually divine protection. When heaven seems quiet, it is often because God is preparing the perfect moment to act. There were nights when your prayers felt as though they disappeared into the darkness. You believed they had gone unheard. But heaven remembered every single word. As Jesus declared in Luke 8:17, "Nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor anything concealed that will not be brought into the light." God's silence has never been neglect. It has always been strategy. While you waited, heaven was already moving behind the scenes. Angels were working beyond what your eyes could see, rearranging circumstances and dismantling plans the enemy intended to use against you. God has never abandoned you. He has been watching. He has been protecting. He has been preparing. What feels like delay on earth is often perfect timing in heaven. Your tears were never wasted. They became the seeds of your next breakthrough. Your pain was never meaningless. It became part of the story God was writing for your redemption. Heaven was never silent. It was gathering every piece of evidence needed to confront the darkness that dared to stand against your destiny. And when God's appointed time arrived, he did not whisper. He spoke with unmistakable power. Imperfect though you may feel, you have never been invisible in the eyes of God. Every injustice you endured was witnessed. Every betrayal was remembered. Every sleepless night became another page in heaven's book of remembrance. When you believed no one noticed your pain, God saw every moment. When you felt completely alone, His Spirit remained close, guarding your broken heart until it could be transformed into strength. Never mistake quietness for indifference. Never believe that stillness means distance. The heavens may seem silent, but they are never empty. Heaven is a courtroom where every action is observed, every prayer is heard, and every tear has purpose. Sometimes silence is simply the pause before God reveals His verdict. Now that silence is coming to an end, what was hidden will be brought into the light. What was whispered in darkness will no longer remain concealed. Heaven has been watching your story unfold, recording every chapter with perfect justice. And now the season of observation is giving way to the season of revelation. When darkness rises, heaven never retreats. It advances. The kingdom of God never stands still while deception works in secret. It responds. It intervenes. The stirring you feel inside your spirit, the growing awareness that something beyond the natural is taking place, is evidence that God is already moving. The battle surrounding your destiny has reached a turning point, and heaven has released help on your behalf. You have never been standing alone. For every word spoken against you, heaven has already spoken a greater promise. For every hidden plan formed to delay your purpose, God has prepared a divine reversal. Forces beyond human sight have been working in your favor from the very beginning. The Lord of hosts fights for His children. His power has never been uncertain, and His protection has never arrived too late. When darkness stretched out its hand toward your future, heaven was already standing between you and what sought to destroy you. The reason you are still standing today is not because of luck. It is because of divine intervention. Every trial you survived is proof that unseen protection surrounded you. Every closed door that frustrated you became a shield from something you could not yet understand. Every relationship that ended redirected your steps toward God's greater purpose. What looked like disappointment was often deliverance. What felt like delay became defense. What seemed like silence was preparing salvation. None of it was random. God's timing is never early and never late. It arrives at the exact moment when truth can preserve your future and strengthen your faith. Do not think this battle exists only in imagination. It is real. Darkness studies the light, but it cannot overcome it. Evil may observe those who belong to God, but it cannot touch what God has chosen to protect without His permission. God's authority is not merely an idea. It is an eternal law. As C.S. Lewis wrote in The Problem of Pain, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. Perhaps the pain you carried was never proof that God had abandoned you. Perhaps it was His voice calling your attention before deception could take root. Understand this carefully. God's protection is not always comfortable. Sometimes His mercy appears as separation. Sometimes His love feels like loss. Sometimes His rescue comes disguised as removal. You prayed for peace, and God removed what continually disturbed it. You asked for clarity, and He exposed what had been hidden. That is not cruelty. That is compassion fighting for your future. This is God's protection. This is His mercy. This is His unfailing love. Together they stand as the pillars holding your destiny secure through every storm. You were never created to fight these battles by yourself. Heaven has always been standing beside you. The same God who opened a path through the Red Sea is opening a path through your confusion today. The same God who spoke through fire still speaks through revelation. Lift your eyes and recognize the pattern. Where darkness rises, light responds. Where deception grows stronger, truth shines brighter. Where fear tightens its grip, grace breaks every chain. Heaven's intervention is not something you're waiting for. It has already begun. There comes a moment when the noise of the battle begins to fade. What remains is not emptiness, but a sacred stillness that follows God's victory. This is that moment. You have been carried through storms you never understood. You survived losses that seemed impossible to explain. You endured seasons of silence that felt endless. Yet every tear, every burden, and every restless night became part of God's work within you, preparing your heart for what He was about to reveal. You were never being punished. You were being awakened. The shaking in your life was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken the deeper places of your soul, where truth had been waiting all along. The human heart rarely grows through comfort alone. More often, it grows through surrender. Brokenness creates space for God's light to enter. It teaches wisdom. It strengthens discernment. It proves that genuine faith is built not on changing circumstances, but on an unchanging covenant with God. Every tear you cried was seen. Every silent prayer was heard. Every lonely moment was remembered. Heaven overlooked nothing. When you believed your prayers disappeared into the darkness, they rose before God like incense. As Psalm 34:18 declares, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." What you called heartbreak, heaven called preparation. What you called loss, heaven called release. What you called delay, heaven called perfect timing. The awakening of the soul is rarely comfortable, but it is always beautiful. It removes the veil between what you believed and what God has been showing you all along. It teaches you to recognize His presence in ordinary moments and His protection in unexpected places. Often, God's protection arrives wearing the clothes of disappointment. You asked Him to reveal your purpose, and He allowed everything false to begin falling away. The shaking was never judgment, it was mercy at work. The Spirit of God is not only your defender, He is also your teacher. He speaks through waiting. He speaks through healing. He speaks through quiet moments that slowly replace confusion with peace. Little by little, you begin to recognize His voice, not in fear but in truth, not in chaos but in peace. When God awakens your soul, He restores more than your faith. He restores your identity. You begin remembering who you were before fear clouded your vision. You rediscover the strength you thought had disappeared. You recover the purity you believed was gone. You reconnect with the calling you almost abandoned. The light rising inside you is not borrowed. It is being renewed. What darkness tried to bury, God is bringing back to life. Your weary soul is finding new strength. The faith that once seemed weak is burning brightly again. You are no longer the person you were before this season. You have become wiser, stronger, freer. This is more than recovery. It is renewal. And within that renewal is one of heaven's greatest gifts, the understanding that what God awakens, no darkness can silence. Truth never arrives quietly. It breaks through every lie like light breaking through the darkness. The moment you are living in now is not confusion. It is unveiling. The mask is falling. What once appeared trustworthy now struggles to remain hidden beneath the weight of truth. What once felt familiar suddenly feels different. You are not losing your clarity. You are finally seeing clearly. The one who walked beside you with pleasant words was carrying more than you realized. In one hand there was affection, in the other hidden intentions. Kindness became a disguise while quiet seeds of delay were being planted beneath the surface, but deception cannot remain hidden forever. When God's light shines, every mask begins to fall. Long before you understood it, your spirit sensed something was wrong. The uncomfortable silence, the empty laughter, the distance you could never explain. Those moments were not meaningless. They were heaven gently whispering, "Look again. Now the time for wondering has ended. The time for seeing has begun. The mask has begun to crack." And beneath it stands a truth you were never meant to uncover by your own strength. Every hidden word carries weight. Every secret intention leaves its mark. The one who believed deception could remain hidden forever failed to remember one thing: nothing stays concealed before God. For a season, the disguise remained because heaven was teaching you discernment. But now the lesson has been learned, and the truth can no longer remain hidden. God is not exposing this situation to fill your heart with bitterness. He is revealing it so He can restore your direction. As Jesus declared in Matthew 10:26, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, and nothing hidden that will not be made known." Do not be afraid of what is being uncovered. Revelation may be painful, but it always leads toward freedom. It may wound your emotions for a moment, but it heals your future. It exposes what is false so your heart can finally rest in what is true. This is not punishment, this is protection made visible. What was designed to deceive you has become the very lesson that strengthens you. What was meant to delay your purpose has become the beginning of your awakening. Remember this truth: deception survives only where darkness remains. The moment God's light enters, every lie begins to lose its power. When truth speaks, manipulation has nowhere left to hide. When every mask falls away, the soul can finally breathe again. Allow God's light to finish what it has begun. Do not mourn the exposure. Celebrate the freedom that comes with revelation. For the God who reveals truth is also the God who restores what deception tried to steal. The face that once confused your spirit is no longer a mystery. The words that once left you questioning yourself now sound empty when measured against God's truth. The influence that once seemed powerful has been broken, and what remains is freedom. This unveiling is not the conclusion of your journey. It is the beginning of a new season. God has not exposed you, He has defended you. The same light that uncovered deception is now shining upon your life, restoring your confidence and strengthening your faith. Stand firmly in that truth. You no longer owe blindness to anyone. Freedom is not merely the absence of chains, it is the presence of truth. When God's truth enters your life, it does more than expose darkness. It brings lasting freedom. You are standing at the place where revelation gives way to peace. The pain of discovery is slowly fading, and something far stronger is taking its place. Clarity. The confusion that once clouded your heart is lifting. The voices that filled your mind with doubt are growing silent. The heaviness that followed you for so long is disappearing because God's truth has driven away the shadow that once surrounded your path. At first, freedom may feel unfamiliar. You became accustomed to surviving. You learned to walk carefully. You learned to smile while carrying hidden pain. You learned to forgive without fully understanding what had happened. But now, the burden has been lifted. Your soul is learning what it feels like to breathe again. Give yourself time. Healing is a journey. Freedom settles gently into the heart. Restoration unfolds one step at a time. Do not fear the quiet that follows deliverance. It is not emptiness. It is peace finding its home within you. God always replaces what he removes. Where fear once lived, he plants peace. Where confusion once ruled, he establishes wisdom. Where doubt once whispered, faith begins to rise. As Jesus said in John 8:32, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And the freedom that comes from God cannot be taken away by people. Every step you take in this new clarity is reshaping your future. You no longer see life through deception. You now see it through the wisdom of God's purpose. You're learning that forgiveness is not agreement with what happened. It is freedom from its control. To forgive does not mean inviting pain back into your life. It means releasing your heart from the chains it once carried. The one who deceived you no longer has authority over your peace because truth has broken every illusion. Their name no longer defines your story. God's purpose does, and that purpose is leading you into a future filled with freedom, wisdom, and lasting peace. Lift your eyes and see what true freedom really looks like. It is the courage to move forward without fear. It is the wisdom to trust the discernment God has placed within you. It is the grace to keep your heart tender even after experiencing betrayal. You are not defined by what wounded you, you are being refined through it. The shadow that once pursued you no longer has authority over your path. The revelation that once shook your heart has now become the very foundation beneath your feet. This is the light of freedom. It does not overwhelm you with fear. It fills you with clarity. It does not demand attention through noise. It quietly transforms everything it touches. As that light fills every corner of your heart, you begin to understand something beautiful. Freedom was never simply about escaping deception. It was about becoming the person God created you to be. You are stepping into that person now, stronger, wiser, awakened, and firmly established in his truth. But revelation is never the end of God's work. It is the beginning of responsibility. Once heaven reveals the truth, you must decide how you will live in response to it. Freedom without direction often leads people back into old chains. Truth without action slowly fades into memory. The light God has placed within you was never meant to remain hidden. It was given so you could walk differently, so you could build wisely, so you could become a blessing to others. You have seen deception for what it truly is. You have watched God's truth cut through every illusion. Now comes the sacred responsibility of living as someone who has been delivered. Do not allow this revelation to remain only a memory. Turn it into your testimony. Let clarity become courage. Let discernment shape every decision. Let your choices reflect the light that rescued you. The world is not changed simply by knowing the truth. It changes when people choose to live according to it. One of the greatest temptations after awakening is to keep looking backward, to replay every conversation, to question every decision, to mourn everything that was lost. But the Spirit of God gently calls you forward. Looking back keeps your heart tied to what heaven has already removed. Your assignment is not to live among yesterday's ashes. Your assignment is to build something holy upon them. Worship is not pretending the fire never happened. It is honoring the God who carried you safely through it. Do not run from the truth. Walk confidently in it. Every step taken in integrity strengthens the foundation of your future. Every healthy boundary you establish becomes another declaration that God's peace is worth protecting. You are learning to guard your heart without closing it, to protect your peace without losing your compassion, to strengthen your faith without allowing fear to take control. The journey will not always be easy. Light has always challenged darkness. Truth has always unsettled deception. Yet, obedience will always shine brighter than opposition. Faith must once again become the rhythm of your life. As C.S. Lewis wisely wrote in Mere Christianity, faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted despite your changing moods. Hold firmly to what God has revealed. Do not allow temporary emotions to erase eternal truth. Feelings may rise and fall. God's revelation remains constant. There may come days when old memories attempt to make you question what God has already shown you. When those moments arrive, remind your heart that truth does not change simply because emotions do. What God has revealed remains true. Choose forgiveness, not because the one who hurt you earned it, but because God desires your heart to remain free. Choose blessing, not because others deserved your kindness, but because bitterness no longer belongs in your life. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the greatest victories faith can achieve. To release resentment is to reclaim your peace. To love again is to prove that darkness failed to steal the light God placed within you. Now rise. Leave behind the valley where deception once whispered lies. Lift your head where shame once tried to keep it lowered. Speak truth where fear once demanded silence. You are not a victim of the storm. You are living proof that heaven still intervenes. Walk forward with quiet confidence. Stand firmly upon God's truth. Remain anchored in His mercy. Live boldly within His purpose. The calling of heaven is no longer somewhere ahead of you. It is already alive within you. Follow it, build with it, shine through it. For revelation reaches its fullest purpose when those who have been redeemed choose to live differently.